episode 1199. No, I'm kidding. We're here at the QSR Evolution and NextGen conference with Tricia from KS&R. We're excited to continue the Detroit Labs Bite podcast series while we're here, and really just want to get a pulse on the industry, what's going on in the restaurant space. And I'm just really excited about today's conversation. I feel like I'm throwing back a couple years at a prior agency of when I started getting really curious about design and design thinking and strategy. So we're really honored to have you on and to talk about, all things QSR and everything that you've been working on. So Tricia, I'll let you do an intro on yourself and go from there.
Sure, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to also be back here at the event, the QSR FSR Summit. This is the third year here in Atlanta. So being an Atlanta native, I was here at the first one, now my third one. So they've done such a great job growing this event. But in terms of me, my background, so I started my career in experiential marketing, which ties into a lot of what I do today. Took a break from that, got classically trained in research, if you will. All things quant, qual, any type of tracking study, ad hoc study. But nowadays, within KS&R, which is a mid-sized kind of full-service research firm, I lead the discovery and design team. So we're specifically focused on creating moments that matter, better experiences for users of all type. But I would say that restaurant and retail are a big focus of mine. But we also do a lot of work with like B2B or other kind of service businesses as well.
Yeah, amazing. So thanks for the intro.
Sure.
And so diving into it, we'll go with an icebreaker question first. What is your favorite fast food order that might be off the beaten path? Could be your favorite Chick-fil-A sandwich with pineapple on top. I've used that joke now twice. I won't use it again. Or our friend Joshua, who invented the bird dog. So, curious what your go-to fast restaurant order is.
Oh, that's a tough one. So I will say, and it really doesn't matter what burger joint it is, but Five Guys in particular, if I go, I always want mayonnaise, mustard, and onions. That's like my go-to combination. It comes from my dad. Like that's how he would always eat his hamburgers, and it just stuck with me. So that's my hamburger topping of choice and my hot dog topping of choice.
Yeah, I like my mayo and mustard on the side extra, even if it's on the burger. I just want some. I want to mix it up and dip pretty much anything I buy in it.
Yeah, I mean, just the food. It's just the vehicle to get the dip.
Yeah, exactly. We're dip people. I love that.
Love it.
So another one, and maybe this conference in general, what did you come for? Obviously, this is your third time coming.
Yep.
This is our first time experience. We've loved it so far, but what's kept you coming back? What did you hope to achieve? And, we're on day 3 or day 2, depending on how you track it, of the conference. Did you get what you wanted out of it?
Yeah, so day 3 for me, I was here the first day because I'm involved with the Women in Restaurant Leadership group. So it was great to come to their workshop on day 1. But I think what keeps me coming back to this conference is, I don't know how else to describe it other than it's very like editorial focused. Mm-hmm. I mean, literally you can tell it's run by publications who are really trying to extract good thought leadership, good themes about what's going on in the industry. And so I learned so much. So that's why I come here is like to know what clients are struggling with, what prospects, just folks in the restaurant industry in general, like what's top of mind for them. Mm-hmm. And so I always leave with new ideas, new thoughts, and of course meet new people, which is great, like you guys. So it's just great.
I love it. Yeah. Has there anything come out of this conference series that's been surprising for you? I feel like between this year and last year, AI is a greater buzzword now. It's more top of mind, but just curious if anything stood out from any of the talks over the past couple of days.
Yeah, so this year I actually got a chance to moderate a couple of talks. And so one of them that I did today was in the full service restaurant track, but it was about the impact of Ozempic and the other GLP-1s on menu mix. And so it's a very personal topic. I use those medications myself, and I've seen all these huge changes in literally how much you can eat. And it was so interesting in that room, just watching people kind of like get the idea in their head that this isn't a light menu. This isn't just, people are choosing to eat less. This is literally people are changing their lives on medication and cannot put as much food in their body. And it's here to stay. So it's just, I think this is going to have such a big impact on the industry moving forward. But the good news is not necessarily in a bad way.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the operators there were talking about well, I'm still getting the same ticket size. It's not that I'm losing sales, I'm just changing what I sell.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. And kind of goes into, before we hit record on this, we were chatting a little bit about how user strategy, user research, kind of design thinking, you can start at the ground level of actual location design. And I think a lot of the conversations we have at Detroit Labs, we're on the, further on the tail end of those, where we're talking technology. Once we've got a physical building already built, the operations staff already have a rhythm. And then we're talking about how do we enhance that either guest experience with tech, and make a more streamlined loyalty or online ordering experience for guests. We're even thinking about the back of house teams, but specifically in the QSR space, how does it go from designing a store to then thinking about how someone will be experiencing it later on? Would just love your take on how there's some similarities between the physical stores and the digital experience as well.
Yeah, no, great question. And I think keeping that connection in your mind from the beginning is so critical. And I've been fortunate to work with some of the restaurants here in the Atlanta area just to help them go through that journey. And you can take it from a sketch on a sheet of paper into a physical model, and I mean full scale model, like made out of foam core. It looks like a white restaurant, it's all white board, right? And physically walk people through the space, and not just the front of house, but also the back of house. So literally I tell, I have 2 young kids, and I tell them I'm going to play restaurant for the day. And I joke about it, but it's really true, because that's how you can take these prototypes and physically see folks go through them to know how to iterate. And then to your point, once you actually put one in market, maybe a pilot, start to figure out the natural ways to integrate that technology. Like physically, where should that pickup sign be to make sure people can find it if they've ordered on your app? Like, where does the digital and physical intersect?
Yeah, that's amazing. One of the things that we've just recently taken on at Detroit Labs is building a financial literacy app for younger children, I'd say appropriate age. I forgot what exactly the cutoff, let's say 9 or 10 to 15 or 16.
Okay.
You're obviously talking to so many different people, and then you're balancing what you're hearing at the experience level with the executives are trying to make decisions on. How do you tell that story? Because I find that such an interesting, like, you're hearing hands-on. The executives might not be hearing the hands-on data, the answers to the questions, but kind of telling that compelling story between the two. Curious how you personally approach that.
Yeah, so I actually have usually more issues the other way. So hear me out.
Ooh, I like this curveball.
So oftentimes I find, the user wants everything. Right? The user wants everything. They're like, you should be everything to everybody all the time. I get this here, why aren't you that? I get this here, why aren't you that? Which is obviously a problem for business, right? So I often tell stories. People hear me say, no more grayscale SUVs. And so the story came about when in Carline one day, I saw a Maserati SUV, which when I blinked, I thought it was a Chevy. And since then, I've seen Lamborghini SUVs and Bentley SUVs. And it's like, okay, how did we get here? Because that's not your sports car heritage. And so I think making sure those executives don't just chase after every, well, what if I want this, that they hear from the users is, I think, sometimes the harder battle, but the more important one, because then you get that focus. And then you're not trying to create something that's just grayscale and generic.
Yeah. Are you, when you kind of get that feedback, and I hear you on the, hey, I want everything. And it's like, it would be so nice if I could have an augmented reality experience and find my way through whatever. But the reality at the end of the day, I'm like, do they really need that? It's like, no, they just need to know where the pickup sign is in the restaurant. How do you take market research, like the hands-on feedback you're getting? Like, how do you then say what's the priority and what's not the priority? Is it, because I think for me, I'm like, as obviously when we come in on the technical consulting side, you've got a prioritized list, and you can only do so much with your team.
It's true.
And when we think of tech, you've got your roadmap, and their clients are like, I want everything. It's like, that's amazing. I'm so glad you want everything. But everything costs about $1.5 million, whatever the number is. It's more. How do you help prioritize that and figure out truly what's the needle mover versus, because everybody could say, oh yeah, I really want that shiny thing. That doesn't mean that it's the reality though, but curious your take on that.
Yeah, common problem. And I would say like one way I've seen be effective to help solve it though is even if you have a long list, making feedback between the users, like even your whole user base, for example, because maybe you do research with a subset, but they're representing your whole user base, and you go back out and you say, hey, we're hearing from y'all. These are the things you need. We're going to prioritize this, and here's what's coming. Roadmaps don't have to be completely private. Now, do you have to give all the information? No, but I would say some of the organizations who do this really well, are often in the startup space. So, I mean, there's a lot to learn, from how they communicate. Like one example I'll give is Readwise is a product I use that it's a way where you can clip things in articles, and it's a reader interface for like pulling down stuff from all sorts of websites or whatever into one spot. Mm-hmm. And they're very open about their roadmap and what's coming up, and just celebrating those users. And so by making it a conversation and not a transaction when your roadmap is complete, mm-hmm. I think you just build more trust. Mm-hmm. But in the reality, if you're not able to do that, money's king.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that really comes down to it, what capital investment is available and just what makes sense for the business.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I've been saying a lot lately, and I'm curious your take on how much of this should be emphasized. So I'm definitely curious about your feedback on this. But one of our clients being Jimmy John's, it's like they, their title is Freaky Fast.
Yep.
And you can't have a Freaky Fast title without a good online ordering experience. And now
True.
Jimmy John's is a giant today. And, Jimmy John's wasn't always a giant, right? They're up and coming.
That's correct.
How much from when you're thinking about QSR and restaurant clients, how much of that in-store experience or even that marketing verbiage should be reflected digitally? And should it be really highly prioritized as well?
All of it. Yes, it should. And it has to sync up, because otherwise you create gaps. Essentially, all your digital platforms are part of your marketing based on whatever communication's in there. And then, of course, there's how they function. But anything you're saying or claiming has to go through all your different channels or all your different interactions, or you're breaking trust. So I think you can't ignore the digital channel. And to your point, in the Jimmy John's example, if that app isn't easy to use, you're literally saying we're Freaky Fast. It's very different than if I'm like going to another restaurant app where they're not talking about speed and they're marketing.
Right.
My expectations might be different, and I'll give them more grace.
Yeah. What scares me is the inverse side of the people that may have wouldn't even call it a bad experience, just not the best experience. Like when I'm speaking digitally, and the most common thing I talk to about brands, and honestly, at a certain scale, it's a problem that you just have to have, is like, I've got a salad, I want to go through and I want to customize my salad online. But if they don't have an item, like it makes you like, it errors out and you have to start over. And it's just, there's some issues with, how you go through that flow. Sometimes it's unavoidable, and it really is, those solutions you have, you do the best with you can. But at what point does a really bad experience, like you can't track that, you can't really tell that outside of user reviews, but how do you coach brands on the things that they don't see? Because it's harder to track, and it's harder to figure out how much revenue is lost. And another conversation that I never thought about before, okay, so you've got one channel, and say you've got a catering order, and they're able to order online, and it breaks and you can't do it. Does that user just abandon the cart and call someone else that can? Or do they just call the store and do it through a phone transaction? Mm-hmm. And I never considered that, if you hit friction point on one, you go to the next channel, and then you go to the next channel.
Yeah.
But what's your take on helping brands see the value on the missed opportunities?
Yeah, I often say, quote from Futurama, of all places, if you do things right, it's like you've done nothing at all. So the good does become invisible. So seeing those bads is so important. And oftentimes, not every user is going to take the time to report it, just like you said. Mm-hmm. Get your developers, get your marketers, make them go experience it. Get them out of their seat or put a phone in their hand and literally have them audit the experiences themselves. We got to do this with a restaurant group. And actually, it ended up actually being really great. It was a product of having less budget to do a journey map before they consolidated across all their brands into one POS. But we actually had the brand teams, it was all cross-functional, go out and audit their own experience, competitors' experience, aspirational experiences, and so they could feel that frustration. We went and talked to team members to understand where they were getting frustrated, where the app was breaking, and so they were getting phone calls. And then you have to coach folks, and this is where it does get tricky, because we as humans are like, we want the majority. We want to hear, oh, well, how many people said that? And that's also a safety net in research, right? Well, how many people said that? Okay, one said it and it's broken. How many more do you need to hear? Right? So I think making them visible, creating empathy, anywhere you can show testimonials, quotes, screenshots, even if you make your own screen recordings, visuals help.
Yeah. Can you explain, I love the concept of, hey, there's a client with a budget and they're budget conscious.
Yep.
And a journey map was a good starting point, great starting point. Can you explain what a journey map is to people if they don't know what that is? I feel like I took that for granted when I learned this from my colleague over at a previous agency. But yeah, explain that. Why is that valuable? Why was that a better path forward than doing some larger type initiative?
Yeah, great question. So journey map, there is no one right way to do a journey map. The main thing to consider with creating one is essentially cataloging in whatever way works for you, all the different touch points or interactions that a user has along the way with your brand. This can be as wide or as narrow as you want it to be. You can put sticky notes on a wall. We use online whiteboards like Miro or Mural. But the main thing is, it is not a static, it's not a static document, it's a dynamic document. It's a living, breathing thing. It's always changing and it should never be put on a shelf. So essentially it's your cheat code of like what it's like to be your customer. And I will say, if you are gonna start with a journey map, don't try to bite off everything. Pick your digital journey or pick your catering journey or pick your website. And you can obviously figure out where these things intersect, but it's helping you understand where you have gaps, where you can improve, and just essentially giving you a roadmap for where to improve.
That's amazing. Yeah, we lean discovery heavy at Detroit Labs, and I'm thinking about a journey map where we kind of put dependencies and from what the client was responsible for and what we were responsible, because there's a lot of connection points, and how helpful it is just to bring clarity to that. So we got a couple minutes left. If you were to offer one piece of encouragement to the restaurant QSR industry regarding this topic, and I'd say your specific lane of expertise, what would that encouragement be to lean in to investing more in that user experience and design?
Yeah, so now that things are getting a lot more interchangeable between the formats, so QSR versus fast casual versus casual dining, all those lines are blurred right now. The differentiator is the experience that guest is seeking, right? And that's not always the same for every visit, right? Sometimes you have the birthday visit. Sometimes you just need to get something quick before soccer. So if your brand has a play in the truly experiential occasions, lean into that. That is a space to really differentiate and be unique. And if you need some cues, look to Starbucks. They do this very well, because you can go from buy at Target, you can go get a regular cup at a regular Starbucks, or you can go to the Starbucks reserved roasteries in some cities where you go to the coffee bar and they make you fresh eggs and this, that, and the other. So think about it on that dimension, service versus experience, where you want to play.
Amazing. Well, this has been, I have loved this. I love every conversation. I'm like, you can see, I'm genuinely actually very happy to have this combo with Tricia here. So and thank you for being a part of this to our Detroit Labs viewers on LinkedIn and wherever this may go. Thank you for being a part of the Detroit Labs Bite here, the QSR Evolution and NextGen conference. And probably till next year, because you're going to be recapping it and be the end of our in-person interviews this year. So we're very grateful, and we'll see you next time.